It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Forum here on Eagle Community Television. We record the Forum live every Monday afternoon. If you're out running around our Dillon's location on Vine Street, be sure and stop in and say hi. Our guest today is running for the governor of the state of Kansas. Her name is Jennifer Winn. She's out of Wichita. Jennifer, good to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
It's been fun getting to know you a little bit before we actually turned on the camera.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I ask, and I ask the other candidates, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to run for governor in the state of Kansas?
I feel like that, like we talked about earlier, we have lost sight of who is really in charge here. And politicians have made this their career. They have silenced the voice of the people. And so somebody, at some point, we've got to stand up. And I'm just that person that can't continue to walk by that wrong and keep going. So once I realized how bad things truly were, I couldn't put my name on a candidate that didn't stand for, in my opinion, cronyism or corruption or lining their own pockets with corporate funding. So I knew that I had to do something. And there was no point in trying to run at the bottom, because at the bottom, we all know, I would be engulfed and I would make no difference. So in my opinion, we not only can serve our country by entering into the armed forces, we the people need to stand up and start serving our country and taking these state positions and applying common sense and real world common sense and be that voice of the people.
How hard is that to do? To stand up and say, I want to run for governor?
It wasn't easy. I had a lot of people who condemned me. I had a lot of people who doubted me. And I had a lot of people that told me it was impossible. And if I can stress anything, it's not. It's not impossible. This can be done. It takes work, and a lot of it. I'm tired. Sometimes my body reminds me how old I truly am. But it can be done. You know, we have raised $17,000. We have used that money very carefully. We're up against $4 million, and yet in our polls, we're sitting at 37% as of 3 weeks ago, which kind of, I think, took everybody by surprise. But people are tired. They're tired of the politicians. They're tired of people, you know, making decisions based on what it does for their own pocket. And so if we're going to change anything, we have to do something different. Because my grandmother always taught me, if you do the same thing you've always done, you'll get the same thing you've always got. And I am not that same thing. So I am something different, and I need the people of this state to stand up and recognize that.
How hard has it been to break through? Because
my gosh,
you're up against a lot of dollars. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of political ads, but there's also a lot of influence that goes with it.
There is, and what I had to figure out the hard way, being the only candidate registered since January for this particular position, what I realized very quickly is that we are basically told about the candidates that have the corporate money. We're not told about the real-life individuals that are running for these positions, which makes me question previous elections, previous candidates that I didn't know anything about. And I've really had to stand up and say, this is not acceptable. This is the law. You have to report the entire circumstance when it relates to a public issue. And I've really had to call them out to some degree. So when I said, I appreciate you taking the time to actually ask questions, whoa, there's another girl running, who is that? That is what it takes. And because of that, because of the push, because of me knocking on doors, going to events, actually being at the Country Stampede in Manhattan, and people were like, you're running for governor and you're here? Really? I mean, they didn't know how to react. They don't know how to react when I answer questions directly on Facebook in black and white. I don't run circles around them. I give them my honest answer, my honest opinion. But the biggest part I think that they connect with is that I'm going to set my own beliefs aside, my own ideologies, and I'm not going to force that on the people. It's to be the majority of people's will, and that's what we've lost.
Well, there's people out there watching and say, boy, here's another candidate that says I'm going to do this. Why should they vote for you?
Well, number one, I think if you look at historically, I am, number one, not an attorney. I am a self-made businesswoman, and I started digging trenches, literally. I installed irrigation systems. So I literally started digging holes. And I've built my company over the last 12.5 years. We're hoping to break the 3 million mark this year, but I started with $100. And it was hard work, it was determination. It was harder because of the lack of participation I would have in the good old boy system, but I stood for what was right. So that didn't deter who I am, and this situation will not deter who I am. When you look at the fact I have no corporate backing, I have no corporate hidden agendas. Those are some of the main things that I look at now. I'm looking at the other candidates and the other races, and I'm going, who's real? Who's real? Because that's who I'm going to support. And I think that's what separates me from the rest. I didn't get to be born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Everything I have, I've worked hard for, and I'm not and people who know me, especially those that work for me, very much identify I'm not a greedy individual. Greed is not part of my nature. It's not who I am. So if they truly do their homework, if they truly get on there and look at my Facebook, read my comments, they'll understand that I'm just a working class individual with common sense. That's who I am.
Common sense, hard work, but how do you translate into what you want to do? You know, there's some real challenge in our state right now.
There is.
You see it in whether it be creation of job, you see it in education. What will you propose that will make a difference?
First and foremost, transparency. Today, one of the very first questions I asked myself is, how is it that we have all this technology? We have iPads, we have tablets, we have phones, we have smartphones, and yet we, the taxpayers, know nothing of what's going on in our capital on a day-to-day basis. Why is that? That's something that I'm going to immediately change, because as long as the voters are educated, they can make educated decisions. If they're kept in the dark and the deals are going on behind closed doors, how are they really truly making an educated decision on who they want in office? So I want that exposure. I want accountability. I want exposure. I want the wasteful spending to stop. I mean, we have great ideas as far as economic growth because we support that. We support our kids, our veterans. And the problem is, I do believe that we're not fully getting the whole picture of where that money is really going. And when we start finding out where that money is really going, we will be able to make real corrections and put the money where it should be. And first and foremost is our children.
And so you're talking about children. How do we find more money to take care of them?
Well, number one is wasteful spending. That's okay. Number one. I believe that we're top heavy in overhead, which in translation into the real world means we have too many paid officials that are making so much that it's not reaching our classrooms and to our students, and teachers struggle then to buy their own materials, and that has to stop. We need to take care of the people who are actually benefiting our children, not someone who wants to come to their office, kick their feet up, and read the morning paper for 2 hours. That's part of the reason, or part of the plan. The other plan is to eliminate things like corporate welfare that is not benefiting small businesses like my own. There's no benefit for me. We're giving that to the people who can afford to pay taxes, and we're eliminating the people that are struggling. So that to me is $1.1 billion every year of what we give. And I think we need to rein that back into reality. The other issues that I have are things like industrial hemp. People are so uneducated about what this product can truly bring to our market that when I learned, and this is just a piece of information to start hopefully you on the track to dig, but China is the largest exporter of hemp. Now, hemp is not marijuana. Hopefully now we all recognize that.
Well, some do, some don't.
Some do, some don't, but it is not marijuana.
So explain the difference.
The difference is hemp is used as a byproduct plant. It is not producing a THC value that anybody can smoke and have a euphoric feeling or be used even medicinally. This plant is structurally designed for industrial use. So we can replace concrete production with hempcrete. We can replace corn with hemp biofuels. It will save, for every acre of hemp, we save 4 acres of trees and produce the same amount of paper. As an arborist, that was appalling to me. So there's thousands of ways. But China, when we began the prohibition on this plant, all predicated on greed back in 1937. What we did is we basically said, no more growing this plant, which is what George Washington used to mandate, as you had to grow this plant if you had a farm. China is now the #1 exporter of this plant, right? Guess who the #1 customer at $17 billion every year is?
My guess is us.
Correct. So we've taken that money, that economic growth, those jobs from our families and from our state and from our country.
How can you convince people you're not growing marijuana?
Well, it's biologically, it's
I know
visually,
it's different, but
biologically
that's what
it's different, but it's also something that you can almost identify at the stalk level. The stalk is much more dense, and so for someone who doesn't know their plants driving by, it would be difficult.
But that's a money raiser? Is that a Kansas saver? What is that?
Well,
what is that? How does that fit into your formula?
To me, it creates tens of thousands of jobs right here in Kansas. What that does is not only does it benefit our farmers because it's drought resistant, it's disease resistant, it's insect resistant. No more soil amendments would have to be made prior to planting, which is a huge deal in agriculture. It would help the aquifer situation, especially in western Kansas where water is of the essence. And for me, that means that we can now begin the process of producing. So not only can we help our farmers, but we can actually then produce these jobs that are making hempcrete, that are making biofuels, open up these empty warehouses and manufacturing buildings that could implement tens of thousands of jobs, not to mention the untapped revenue from tax that it would then create. So you take that in way of, or in addition to wasteful spending, and you no longer now have a problem. You're not any longer spending what you don't have. You are actually putting money back into education, giving them their arts classes, giving them their music, giving them the things that they need to excel. You're no longer letting veterans die frozen underneath a bridge because they're homeless. You have the money to adopt programs, to put them in placement for job creation, put them in placement for having homes that would otherwise maybe be condemned. So we have those abilities. We have just been led to believe that this propaganda regarding this particular plant is deadly, it's hallucinogenic, it's all of these things that if you truly get into the research, you will find very quickly is false.
You mentioned when you were talking about that, the water issue, and I understand you have some interesting looks at how we can do a better job of protecting the resource that we have in Kansas. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, number one, it would be changing a type of crop, right, that would be resistant to some of the issues we have with water. But most importantly is the communication with the other states that are pulling from this aquifer. We're not the only one. There is another issue that I'm looking at as far as, where Colorado dammed up the river that would naturally replace the aquifer levels. So there's a number of things that I'm not sure why our current administration hasn't addressed, why it is we're not communicating with the other states that are pulling from the same source of water, and why it's not a team effort. Why is it just a Western Kansas effort? So I think that there are many, many things that need to be opened up and exposed when it comes to the water issues that we have here in Western Kansas.
Jennifer Winn is our guest here on the Forum on Eagle Community Television. The Forum is brought to you by Hayes Med. Jennifer, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and find out how people can find out more about you, that common sense you talk about, some of the other things. We'll be back after this.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications. Our community connected.
Welcome back to the second half of our forum here on Eagle Community Television. The forum is brought to you by Hayes Med. If you have any questions or comments, send them to me. I'm at gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also check us out on Facebook under ECTV Forum. Check that out, and we'll be your friend, and you let us know what you'd like to hear. Our guest today, Jennifer Winn, and Jennifer is running for governor. No small task when you start really from scratch and $100
yes.
To make this happen. Have you run for anything before, or is this just
well, you know, years
one
ago,
weekend that you said, hey, I'm going to run for governor, let's make this happen?
Years ago, and it's probably been, gosh, 15 years ago, I ran for a school board position. And that was my first experience. It's actually quite funny because that was my first experience in anything political. And I was very angry that they wanted to bus my children across town, and I lived across the street from the school that I grew up in. So somebody said to me, well, Jennifer, you're absolutely right. You should go run for office. And I said, well, I don't know about that. And they said, well, just call. So I called, and that day was the filing deadline. So I thought, okay, it's a free job. I will go down there, and I will pay my service, and I will help education further along. And I'd pulled the budget. It was $14.5 million is what we were spending to bus children across town that didn't need to be bused. And so I went down and filed, and the next day they announced it on television, you know, that I was running, and I was running against Jim Ward, which at the time was a former state senator. And long story short, I was in shock when people were raising $90,000 to run for a free job. I was like, why would they do that? Why would anybody raise that kind of money to run for a free job? And I couldn't grasp that. So I didn't raise anywhere near what Jim Ward did. He outspent me by about $90,000. I raised about $1,500 to buy signs. I very quickly learned I needed signs. And then I just went and knocked on doors. And I think I lost that race by 252 votes, something like that. But again, I was just me. I was just honest. I was just who I am. And I stood for what I thought was right.
So is this governor's race, is this a career change for
No.
you where you're going to get into politics forever?
No, I really don't want to get into politics forever. That's not, I love my job, I love my business, I love my career, it's what I do, and it's what I enjoy. This is a service to my country. This is a service to my state. And if elected, term limits is something I'm very much for. I'm tired of the career politicians. So I am looking to win. I'm looking to make the drastic changes, especially on transparency, that I think we need, that will end cronyism and corruption, and that is harming our people. I think that once we go transparent, the people will never let that go back.
So you talk about transparent. We'll wrap things up here by finding out where they go to find out about you.
Is
there a way to do that?
There is. There's a couple different ways. You can go to winnforkansas.com, or you
That's
can...
with two N's, right?
That's with two N's, W-I-N-N. Or you can go to Jennifer Winn for Kansas on my Facebook, or you can even personally add me to my personal Facebook. I don't hide anything. I'm just an average person. But you can find me a number of different ways, and especially on Facebook, because that's where I really communicate with the voters. I'm able to do it in the car, when I'm traveling, on my phone. So I would encourage them to look me up, ask me a question, give me a call. You know, we call people every day. We call them back every day. Takes me sometimes till 10:30 at night, but we make it a point to make them understand that we're here for them. So when you see the corporate funding, when you see the big millions, worry. That's what I would say.
Now, somebody can go there and find you, but you're also going to be traveling around the state, like you're up here in our area right now.
I am, yes.
And is that listed at where you're going to be if somebody wants to meet you in person?
It is. It's actually listed on our website at winnforkansas.com. And we try and keep that updated. Now, we do get flooded daily with new events, new things, and sometimes it's hard to keep up. We don't get to pay our volunteers, so we actually have real volunteers that have real jobs and have limited schedules as well. So we do the best we can, but we've been in Wamego, and I think tomorrow. I think tomorrow I'm in Junction City at the meet and greet there. So we're all over the state, but we try and keep everybody updated, especially on Jennifer Winn for Kansas on our Facebook.
We'll have people look for that. Hey, Jennifer, thanks for being here today. Good luck in your run for governor of the state of Kansas.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Jennifer Winn has been our guest here on the Forum program. Thanks for watching. The Forum is brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communications. Our community connected.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.